Let's talk about playing tragedy as comedy. One of the first things I noticed about Sunny was its use of this technique, and usually this type of thing gets kind of lumped under the collective term dark comedy, but at least for me, Sunny's always had a special way of selling particularly tragic situations as juicy comedy. Let's start early on in the show's history with this example. Now, whenever there's something tragic that you want to play as comedy, a good strategy is to take your tragedy and use it as the exposition, but then to almost eclipse it by setting the tone with something that's even more universally relatable than tragedy. In this case, it's social awkwardness with like a hint of selfishness. But you see, social awkwardness is interesting because pretty much everybody has experience with it, and we can all sort of feel it when presented with it. It's almost like we developed a sensitivity to it, one that's even stronger than our sensitivity to tragedy. At least it feels that way. So while watching this scene, watch for two things: the absence of expected emotion and the absence of expected action.
Yo, Charlie, it's Dennis. Hey.
Hey, dude.
What's up, buddy? Hey, your face looks, like poofy.
Oh, yeah, I've been crying a little bit.
Huh? I'm sorry. Hey, do you have that basketball? Mac and I were about to go play in the park. I think you...
Yeah, I might. Come on in.
Yeah? Okay. What's wrong? You look, hungover or something.
No, yeah, I found out I might have cancer, so... Ooh.
What?
Yeah, I found out I might have cancer. That's why I haven't been down to the bar recently.
Jesus, dude, I don't know what to say.
You don't say anything. Here, check these pamphlets out. They go over cancer, cancer-related issues. You know, it feels actually pretty good to get this off my chest, you know?
Yeah.
I've been sitting in here boo-hooing a little bit, so... I mean, I'm glad we can talk. We can talk, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, talk. We can always talk.
All right, so it starts out, I'm not feeling good. I'm having headaches and...
Did you want to talk, like, right now?
You know, I was thinking we could talk right now.
Well, it's not really a good time. I mean, it's just that Mac and Sweet Deer are down in the car. They're waiting for me. I told them I'd just zip in and zip out.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I mean, I could ask them to wait.
Don't do that.
I really shouldn't.
Then don't. All right.
Could I get the basketball, though? We're supposed to meet, like, a bunch of people, and we were supposed to bring them.
Yeah, no, you're... Okay.
So you can see how neither character is able to really predict what the other one's going to do. This really drives home the authentic feel because that's often the root of our own social embarrassments, misreading the people you're talking to. Now, the astute film scholars out there will notice the lack of music, and that's very important. Things tend to be even more awkward without music, and in fact, music is so powerful that many directors these days seem to not know how to make a scene fit the right tone without the music to tell the audience exactly what to feel. But that's a talk for another time, if ever. Anyway, in that episode, even though Charlie is lying about having cancer, it hasn't really been revealed to the audience yet, so it's not really relevant. But it does bring up another method that Sunny uses to pull this type of gag off, and that's fabricating the tragedy. We can see this method used in the episode Charlie Got Molested.
Hello, Charlie.
Huh? Grandma, Uncle Jack, what's everybody doing here?
Well, we've all gathered here at the request of your friends.
Hey, bud.
Hi, Charlie.
Hello, Charles.
Okay, Charlie. Show us on the doll.
Show you what?
Where he touched you.
Do it. Slow.
So, this one is pretty straightforward. Have the source of the tragedy be a lie to begin with. McPoyle set up the intervention to trap Charlie into lying to the cops, and we see this again and Sweet D gets audited.
This is dark.
Darkest thing we've ever done.
Oh, what's going on?
Baby croaked.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God.
This is insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this definitely feels like emotion trumping reason, correct?
Yep.
This is a very sad day for the entire Patty's Pub family. At times like this, I like to quench my thirst with a delicious Wolf Cola. There's nothing like that to wash away the sorrow.
You're here.
Now this segues us nicely into another method, masking with absurdity. You can control the tone of your scene by dialing things up to an absurd level so that any tragedy you have buried beneath it is basically irrelevant.
Sob. Sob, you bitch.
Oh, it hurts. God, it hurts. The pain inside. God, it hurts so bad.
Okay.
Oh, my
That's
God,
enough.
I'm sorry.
Okay, D.
I'm sorry.
You've done.
What? What? I was bleeding? Oh my God, is it
Okay. Oh.
Mr. Blood, you son of a bitch.
Move on.
That's excellent. Excellent, Dennis. Thank you. Thank you. Now, we would like to pay our respects to the dead baby. And in the Christian tradition, we're going to open up the casket to take one last look at his tiny corpse.
No, you don't want to do that.
No.
What is happening?
This is what you get when you mess with the pickle party. Pickle party? Prepare for your hearts to turn to stone! Oh, what the hell is that?
It's a dead dog from the alleyway. I was compromising.
Or how about this heartbreaking scene of a grown man having an emotional breakdown when he finally makes the connection about the sad truth of his unfortunate upbringing.
You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming.
That's good. Your mom's gonna like that.
Where you going? Charlie, what are you doing?
So, son, what would you like for Christmas, huh?
Did you fuck my mom?
What?
Did you fuck my mom?
What do you mean?
Did you fuck my mom, Santa Claus? Did you fuck my mom? No. Did you fuck her? No. Did you fuck my fucking mom? Did you fuck my mom, Santa? Yeah! Ah, he's biting my leg! Charlie! Get him up! He's trying to kill my
Truly tragic stuff. But anyway, let's get to the big one. One of my personal all-time favorite scenes from Sunny. This fucking scene is amazing. Anybody that's interested in dark comedy needs to study this scene. The scene is a very good example of how great comedy is often extremely close to drama. Anyway, let's just listen to the speech.
Okay. Let's talk about...
I ain't talking about nothing. This skull is Fort Knox.
Why don't you trust therapists?
I opened up to a therapist just once. I was a kid. I got into a fight. The doctor asked me question after question. Got me so scrambled up. Next thing you know, I was shanghaied upstate to a nitwit school. You know what a nitwit school is?
I assume you mean a school for the mentally disabled.
Yeah, not just for nuts in the head, bodies too. Back then, science was real crude. They stuck us all together. My roommate was a frog kid. You ever see a frog kid?
Frog kid?
Yeah, the place was windowless. There was a guard every 10 feet. All the rooms had drains in the floors so they could hose us down.
How terrible.
Got my first kiss there.
Frank?
It was terrible. But not her. She was an angel. Always smiling. That's because she had no lips. But her mouth was still very much in play.
Let's talk about the dishes.
Oh, she died 2 weeks later. She thought she was a spaceman with a plastic bag for a helmet. Oh. You unzipped me. It's all coming back. It's all coming back. I hate you. It's all coming back, you understand? I don't like it. I don't like to think about it. It's with a plastic bag for a helmet. You unzipped me.
Now, there are several elements to this that I want to mention, and without these, the scene really wouldn't work at all, or at least not as well. The first is the spectrum of emotions portrayed. Here's a scene from In Bruges, a great dark comedy that leans more towards drama than comedy, but watch what emotions the character experiences.
Give me gun back. You're not getting it back. You're a suicide case. And you're trying to shoot me in the fucking head. You're not getting that gun back. How great day this has turned out to be. I'm suicidal. My mate tries to kill me. My gun gets nicked and we're still in fucking barrels.
Listen, I'm gonna give you some money and put you on a train somewhere.
Like England?
Like England, Ray, you'll be a dead man.
I don't want to be a dead man. You've been missing something.
You don't want to be a dead man, Ray.
I killed a little boy.
And save the next little boy. Just go away somewhere. Get out of this business and try to do something good.
Now, let's see what emotions Mr. DeVito portrays.
The place was windowless. There was a guard every 10 feet. All the rooms had drains in the floors so they could hose us down.
How terrible.
Got my first kiss there.
Frank?
It was terrible. She was an angel. Always smiling. She died 2 weeks later. She thought she was a spaceman with a plastic bag for a helmet. You unzipped me. It's all coming back. It's all coming back. I hate you. It's all coming back, you understand? I don't like it. I don't like to think about it. It's with a plastic bag for a helmet. You unzipped me.
So there's lots of overlap there, but this gets to my point that the scene is played with an emphasis on the humanity of Frank's character. It's almost like this exact performance would fit into a drama. It's fucking brilliant. Secondly, the music. You'll notice that in this scene they actually do use music here to set the tone, but they set it to tragedy, yet the scene still plays as comedy, so a lot of this is on Danny's performance, but to be fair, the music choice was almost overly stereotypical of tragedy, so it ends up kind of working as a parody. And lastly, I just want to mention that Trudy Weigel over here does a great job too. This is a pretty important factor in what helps it play as comedy despite being acted as drama. I mean, she's basically hitting the panic button to try to stop Frank from continuing despite being a trained therapist. That and Frank basically unzipped himself and the therapist was just there to witness the breakdown. Both of those things help the scene come off as comedy despite its dramatic acting. Also, you could describe the end of the breakdown scene as having a bit of absurd elements to it. But no matter how you classify it, it all comes together really brilliantly. Alright, well, that about does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I got the audio levels to be a little bit more bearable than last time. None of you really complained about that, but I fucking knew. Anyway, links to my Twitter in the description. It's absurdly political, so some of you might not enjoy that. But I'll try to keep this channel politics-free for the time being. Thanks for watching. I do want to thank my brother for editing these videos because I am kind of a shitheel and don't want to do it despite really wanting to talk about this stuff. So the fact that these are in video format are a lot thanks to him. He does a pretty big part of it.